Okay, go ahead and get started. Uh, Hello, I'm Robert Manji from Western Oregon University, and I will be the moderator for this session. This session is being recorded and will be posted online to our archives. The chat option is for courteous conversation and positive feedback for the presenters. The Q&A option should be for questions. They can be asked anytime, but will be answered at the end. At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter, Maura Valentino. Maura will be presenting on Remix and Open Education Resource, OER textbook to include local and cultural content.
Thanks, Robert. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Oh no. Alright, let me see if it'll let me do this one. Boy, Robert, it's not letting me share my screen. Let me close this down and try again.
Try now. You've just been made a co-host.
There we go. Okay. All right. So is everyone seeing the slideshow? The opening slide? Robert, is that what you're seeing?
I'm seeing the Online Northwest schedule.
Oh, that's weird. All right, let me, Shoot, that's weird. I started the slideshow. Okay.
Do you have two screens by chance?
Yeah, I
Or
do have two screens, yeah.
it might be showing on your second screen instead of your slideshow screen.
Yeah, let me get back to here. How do I get back here? Shoot.
If you stop sharing and then share again, you could probably select
Yeah,
the
here we
screen.
go. Okay. All right, so I can't start the slideshow because it's going to take my whole screen. So let me try it on the other. Oh, okay, I know what I did. Okay. What's behind here?
That's your presentation showing.
Okay. And now is it still showing?
Yes.
Yay, thank you. Okay.
We are
Sorry.
seeing the presenter style version though, with all like any notes that you have, not the.
It's not showing the full screen?
No.
I wonder if I can. Oh, here we go. Swap displays. There we go. How's that?
There you go.
All
That's
right.
perfect.
I just got one click done. All right. So sorry about that. Robert already introduced me. I'm Maura Valentino, and I'm going to be talking about how to remix an open educational resource, or OER, textbook to include local and cultural content. This is all part of the SPARC, the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Coalition, Open Education Leadership Program, and I was the 1920 cohort. And you can see I'm right there in the blue dress and the red sweater. I put an arrow pointing to myself. So part of the program was that we all got together in Phoenix for an OER content in a conference in the fall of 2019. And it was an excellent conference. The program is fall of 1 year and then spring of the next. In our case, winter and spring of the next. And so we already knew about our capstone projects when we went to this conference. And I had been thinking about doing something with social justice because I was big on adding that to the conversation. I'd gotten a lot of impact from adding that. People would be sitting there kind of bored when I was talking about saving money for the students. But then when I talked about a socially unjust classroom, their ears kind of perked up. But then as part of this conference, I went to a session. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have gone through this. This is the SPARC Open Education Leadership Program, and it is an intensive program. It sure is. You have like 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 readings every week and different papers, and it ends with the capstone project. So anyway, I went to a session at that OER conference on remixing OERs to include local and cultural content. And, the whole time the person was talking, my mind was just clicking, and I was like, that seems to me a much better open, capstone project for me. And so I created a LibGuide on how to remix the OER. And the points they made was that material is more accessible and interesting to students with that kind of material added. And it'll engage them more, and engaged students have a higher completion rate. And so far, a resource for this didn't exist. So it seemed like a good thing to do. So I created a LibGuide for librarians, but also, for any faculty, it's certainly completely understandable on how to do this. So now, what other reasons are there to mix OER? Well, faculty complain about the quality of OERs. So it allows the faculty to create customized pedagogy. And, excuse me, a couple weeks ago, I did, just a general OER informational session for my faculty. And I had one faculty ask me if I needed a testimonial about OER. And I said, of course, that would be great. And what she sent me talked all about customizing the pedagogy, and that she's no longer trapped into the textbook, and that, it's chapter by chapter, and, it doesn't really cover what she wants, and, not necessarily in the order or the way she wants. And now she can create, a course that's more what she wants to teach. And, that's great if you can start from the beginning, but maybe you don't have time to create a resource from scratch. Adding to an existing OER is much more doable, and it still creates a resource that's much more accessible to students and allows you to, use your own pedagogy. You could skip a whole chapter and just use your own materials, or, add in a chapter from somewhere else, or anything you wanted. Okay, so the next few slides are just going through this LibGuide, and so I'm going to escape out of here and just go to the guide itself. Okay, and I just made those slides in case somehow the library website was down or something. I didn't want to have nothing to show you. Excuse me. So it starts, with your basic how to use this guide, and of course I included a CC BY SA license. Throughout the whole guide, I used 2 examples. One is a book from OpenStax on American history, and specifically the chapter on World War II. Obviously, history books are ripe for this kind of thing. I mean, other things like, a math book, I don't really know how you would do this. That would seem like asking a lot. And then the other one I used was a book on online education, creating online learning experiences. And then finally there's some links about the technical side and a few other things, and I'll go through that. So anyway, I discussed the LEAD OER program, and it is an excellent program. They are accepting applications soon. They're opening up the applications for this coming fall, which would be, of course, 21-22. One of the best things about the whole thing was meeting that whole cohort and getting to know everyone, and having people to rely on, and so forth and so on. So again, I talked a little bit about this already, but we want to convince people who are using this guide, why they should be using it or might want to use it. It does empower the faculty to create the pedagogy that they feel is best. And again, writing an entire OER is time consuming, and so forth and so on. So first of all, where do you find an OER to begin with? There are lots and lots of places I could have taken up, the equivalent of, 3 or 4 places, pages listing things. But anyway, College Open Textbooks is a good one. They no longer accept books with a CC license, but that has an ND, which means no derivatives. So you couldn't do this to one with an ND license. But some older items, still may contain it. So you do have to check, which I'm going to go into in the next tab. OpenStax College, all books here
Hey,
have a
Maura,
license.
just want to let you know we can't see your actual LibGuide. It's still on your presentation.
Shoot. Okay. Let me. Sorry. I'm glad you said so. I'm glad you said something. All right. I'm gonna stop share and start share again. Sorry, guys. I'm usually. Oh shoot. I keep clicking the advanced options instead of just the share screen. Okay. We are here. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see that now.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna just quick go back. Although it's nothing exciting. So this is how to use it. And again, here's the CC BY license, and here are the 2 books that I used throughout as examples. And then here's just a very short thing on the lead OER program. And again, a little paragraph on why they should be doing it, just like I went through in the opening slides. And then these are the links on where to find it. And I guess I was just getting to these 3: OpenStax College, Open SUNY textbooks, and Open Textbook Library. All the books have a license that allow remix, and these are 2 good portals. I particularly like Oasis, that can find OERs from many sites. So the licenses, might vary. So you want to check before you go remixing an OER. Oasis does cover a lot of different sites, and so does OER Commons. I guess I've just had more luck with Oasis. Okay. So how do we determine the license? Okay. Some CC licenses are CCND, which means no derivatives. So that means it can't be remixed. Most of the OER sites makes it pretty easy to find the license so that you can see it. Now, can you guys see this now that I switched windows?
It's on Theatrical Worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can see here it's a link, Creative Commons org licenses NCND, so no derivatives there. So they're not hiding it or anything. And then the same thing with OpenStax. Now here's CC BY, and there is no ND, so that would be fine to use. So, you just have to do a little bit of research. Now, local content is a fun thing to add because, of course, if people see, the name of their town or, a nearby town or even their state, it helps make things more interesting for them. So, and again, obviously it doesn't apply to all subjects. Excuse me, but even adding one local picture can increase the student's connection to the material. And of course, history, obviously, as I said before, is ripe for doing this. Local and special local archives and special collections have put a lot of things online, have digitized things and made digital collections. So, it's fairly easy to search for things. Archives also put what they call finding aids up, which are kind of lists of things they have. So if you really are interested in something they have, but they haven't digitized it, they'll often digitize it for you and send it to you. They like helping people. They like interacting with their collections. But anyway, I checked some local online collections, and I actually found some things that are sort of more general to World War II, which I found really interesting. They were keeping track. Of where students of Japanese descent were going to college, and they made a map of it. Boy, and that German map keeps disappearing. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is interesting. It's a map of Japan, but it's from a German book. And notice it says like Japanese Reich. They call it a Reich. And, you can zoom in. There's very interesting details and so forth. So it's interesting what you come across. But it's also interesting to see that there is local pictures. Here's a picture of Yakima County women sorting hops during World War II, obviously. Women added a lot during World War II. Local content doesn't always apply. Can local content be added to a book about online learning? MOOCs were very popular for a while. They stand for Massive Online Open Courses. So they're open and they were free courses, or sometimes there was maybe a very small fee. But there are MOOCs on certainly local people. So, I mean, if you were in Virginia, you could lead people to a MOOC on Patrick Henry or a MOOC on Thomas Jefferson. Now, that's a lot of information. So, you might want to just add that as an extra resource for students. That's one of the things that you have to be careful of when looking for any of this content. And I think I talk about it here in the cultural content. Is that it's important that it's the right length. Like obviously adding a picture, that's not going to add, work for anybody, but you wouldn't want to add an article like that's so dense that it makes them disinterested in the topic, or, that's just so long that, it becomes burdensome. But if it's just a paragraph, it might not be enough to spark their interest either. So, you have to use your judgment. So OER content does kind of keep up with the times more than traditional textbooks do. So there may be, more cultural content than, some of the more traditional textbook, but, there also may not. So anyway, when looking for the material, again, you need to make sure the license is okay to actually add to the textbook. It's got to be open too. You can't add somebody's licensed material unless it's just a couple of lines or something like that. But I'm not going to get into a copyright talk. That's not what this talk's about. So make sure it has a CC license or it's in the public domain. Now you can always add a link to something. And if somebody doesn't want people accessing it, the link may break at some point. That's always a chance. And obviously you need to check that at the beginning of every quarter, but that you're using it. But, that's why it's easier to find material that's CC BY, because you can add it right in here. So these are some African-American troops here in 1943, somewhere in England. It doesn't specify. The contributions of African-American women are rarely mentioned. I mean, women are mentioned a lot, Rosie the Riveter and back on the home front doing the food and all that kind of thing, but they don't talk about the African-American women much. So here's an interesting photo from the Women's Army Auxiliary. Actually, here it is. This is an article I found on Hispanics in World War II, and I thought this was just about the perfect length. It goes into a little bit of detail in a lot of different stories. So if it's really interesting to read, and you can see it's not that long. But it talks about it, in just a few sentences about a lot of different things, so that, it opened in the same window. So that if a student's reading it, a lot of different subjects might come up if they needed a topic for a paper. They, a lot of things I would think would spark interest and get students thinking. And then this is about online learning, and it talks about people of color and how they do with online learning, and this is an excerpt, and again a link to the full article. And again, it's in the same neighborhood of length. It's not hugely long. Okay. Sorry, I keep having to move. In fact, I should just move this over here. Okay, that's going to make it easier. All right. Okay, and same thing really, finding things about women. Um, Again, you want to make sure the license is open and that things are about the right length. I recently read a book about women code breakers. I found that super interesting, and here's an article about that. I think it mentions the book, but again, it's fairly short. Yeah, Code Girls. That's the book I read. So again, if the students are interested and they need a topic for a paper, and then this is different. Veterans History Project, has lots of information about women and so forth and so on. And again, you can always add a picture. Here's a photograph of the wave decoding unit, which was the Navy one. The Army had code breakers too. They all did. And then here's posters. I love posters actually to talk about history. I think they say a lot because they kind of say sometimes what the people are thinking and sometimes what the government is thinking and what they wanted them to do. And here's just some women at the switchboard doing the communications. Again, that was a big role for women. And then, excuse me, here we go back to the online learning. And there are articles on the difference in gender when it comes to online learning. And here's an excerpt and a link again to the full article. So again, I would make this print bigger myself or print it out or something, but it's not super long. Because again, it's already a textbook. We don't want to add, chapters and chapters and chapters worth of material. Okay. Again, I could go on with pages and pages and pages of different links, and I included the 3 different places I've worked for the local archives online because I knew them best. So Ellensburg, Washington, Corvallis, Oregon, and Norman, Oklahoma. They all have really good digital collections. There's a lot of different cultural archives. Here's a Bracero history archive, African Americans in World War II, African American archives. And then you have your state archives. And again, I did Washington, Oregon, and California near where we are. Library of Congress is great for national things, but it's also really good for local things because you can narrow down the location, so you can look for things by your own location. So even if maybe they didn't have Ellensburg, maybe they'd have the state of Washington, or maybe they'd have Eastern, Washington generally, or Central Washington, not just Ellensburg. And then there's different women's issues archives. And of course, this isn't, by no means a comprehensive list, but it would certainly get you started. So once you find this material, what exactly do you do with it? So I have some step-by-step instructions about adding things to different formats, depending on, if it's an EPUB book or if it's just in Word or what is it. Now, if a person doesn't want to get into all that, which I don't blame them, excuse me, if they didn't want to get into all that, you can always just add the links into your learning management system. So we use Canvas, and I generally go week by week. So if you were putting your chapter or chapters in for that week, or your other readings, or whatever you might have going on, you can just put a link to, the pictures or the, extra article or whatever just right there. So you don't actually have to specifically combine it with the textbook. That would also be a kind of sneaky way of, not actually remixing the textbook, which would let you use something that had an ND license, because you're really not remixing or making a derivative of a textbook. You're just adding other materials to read and so forth, which a lot of professors do anyway. You're reading chapter 1 and you're reading an article about this or that. That's hardly uncommon. But if somebody wanted to actually remix, it's available. The other thing I included is just a PowerPoint that you can download and present this information to, to faculty or to other librarians or to anyone you might want to present it to. That obviously also carries a CC BY license, and you're happy to add things to it or take things away or just use one side, or whatever anybody wants to do. The other thing you need to think about too is accessibility. That one article I clicked on, and I'm actually going to change the LibGuide and do something about that. The writing was excessively small. I would have to put on my glasses to read that, which I normally have on, but still in all, most things I can read if I don't have them on, but I don't think I could that. And there's things with a lot of pictures, and so you need to think about that when you're adding things in. You don't want to add things in that makes accessibility difficult for your students. So anyway, I have a whole page on that, and we have the web content accessibility guidelines and an accessibility checklist, and then captions for videos are getting better and better. If you upload a video to YouTube, it will do the captions for you. And now there's another, there's other places that do it too. Again, you want to make sure you've described any images that you put in. For example, I don't love this all text Mount Rainier. I would put a little more information, snow-capped Mount Rainier, or, Mount Rainier in the summer with this blooming or that blooming, or, from this direction, or, if you're going to make it accessible, make it accessible. Let them know what the picture is. Detail, detail, detail. I was going to say that the textbooks are generally fairly accessible at this point. PDFs can be difficult, but you can see there's Adobe itself puts out a PDF accessibility overview. So you can make PDFs accessible, but you're going to have to do a little bit of work yourself. So, all right, and that is the LibGuide. So let me go past my pictures here. I don't really think I have anything else. Yeah, no. All right, I think I covered everything. Like I say, I cut out pictures of the LibGuide in case somehow the the website was down, which I was certainly hoping wasn't going to be the case. So, could I take any questions? And let me stop sharing, and then I'll be able to see the chat.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, you can use the Q&A option. So I have one about, I know you mentioned YouTube. Have you gone in and actually adjusted captioning to when you've uploaded something to YouTube?
Have I changed the captioning when I've uploaded something to YouTube? Yes, a couple of times I've done that. Not actually for work, but I sometimes do personal things on YouTube.
Okay. See if we have any more questions. All right, got one here. This seems like a great opportunity to incorporate open pedagogy by asking students to contribute local examples around a topic, example, climate change. Have you had any discussions with faculty around this idea?
Yeah, boy, that's actually a really great idea. I'm writing that down right now. Um, no, I hadn't even occurred to me to make this a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a group project and get input on local things. But yeah, I'm certainly not the expert on local things around here. That's a great idea. And I liaison with the honored college students. They'd probably like doing that.
And I suppose depending on where you're building that, you could also like give them editing permissions if you're using like libguides or something, so they could also contribute to the actual building of the, not just content, but actual the building of the
Right.
artifact that you're creating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
Any other questions that we have out there? Okay, not seeing any. So I want to thank Maura. This is a great presentation,
Thank you.
and those links will be definitely very happy. Actually, we got one through the chat here. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you face with getting faculty to embrace OER and how you deal with those?
Um. Yeah. um. Some people are just against it, and to be honest, I don't understand why. We have one history professor, which it seems funny to me coming from history, that stands up in nearly every faculty senate meeting complaining about OER and there's too much OER. That kind of thing I don't actually understand at all. I've had good like I say, when I talk about social justice, people's ears seem to perk up. And when it came to the administration, when I shared information on that it saves the school money, of course, their ears perk up because it saves people from withdrawing, which, costs the school money. They're already counting on a certain amount of money for those 3 credits or 4 credits or whatever it is. And if the student withdraws, they get, obviously a certain amount back. So, you know what I mean? They kind of already count that money as theirs, once the students paid for those credits. So they really don't want withdrawals and having to give that money back. So OER really does help prevent that. Our president, too, made a big priority of retaining students freshman year to sophomore year, which again, there's a lot of OER for the general education and the kind of things that freshmen are taking. So if we could alleviate that one burden of the textbook cost, then that would be one more point in our favor, and at least retain a few more students.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments in the chat or the Q&A? All right, well, I'm going to thank you, Mara. That was a great presentation, and thanks for the guide that people can follow up on if they're interested in kind of exploring that. This will wrap up our last session here. The conference closing will be at 3, and it's going to be on this same Zoom link. So
Great. Thank you very much.
excellent.